Hello and welcome back to Let's Play Alundra. The last episode we spent basically the entire time doing side quests in that stupid casino, so I guess it's time to drag ourselves kicking and screaming back to the main plot. It's because I had a Septimus. As you recall, we are researching a rumor that Chancellor Ronan might actually be worshipping Melzus instead of whatever the, the benevolent supposed god of this particular universe is supposed to be. So we'll be breaking into the church, and we bring up the concept of eternal damnation, but I mean, it's not like life is all that great in this place as it is. I mean, people are visited in their dreams by demons and turning into werewolves and all this other junk. So, we get to put our wind scroll to use. As it turns out, that's actually what triggers our ability to re-enter this locked sanctuary. Very slowly for some reason, with a bit of load time. Yeah, for some reason the audio didn't trigger on the first casting of the spell. I'm not really sure if it's a glitch of the emulator that I'll have to cover later or some other problem, but you got to hear it when we blew open the window. I don't really know where we entered from, just sort of appeared out of nowhere, starting out in front of the sanctuary, then casting the spell, and then all of a sudden we're in the back. Wonderful, whatever. Anyway, we're here, and what the heck happened to Septimus? I mean, did we let him in, or... Moving over here, any minute now. Yeah, there we go. Banging on the door. We just went in without him, or I should say he just didn't bother to come follow us in through the back window, or whatever it was that we entered in. So here he is. So he'll basically stand here in the middle of the main hallway that we've already seen while we go and do all the busy work. Actually, Septimus does participate quite a bit in this little endeavor, as we'll see a little bit later. So let's get started. First place we want to go is up the stairs here to the right, up to this room over here. Basically this is almost a breather, I would say. The next couple of dungeons are relatively simple by comparison to the large-scale ones like the Magiskar and some of the Dream dungeons we've been dealing with lately. There aren't a lot of enemies. Yeah, of course, the bow is considered an air weapon already, so I don't have to jump. Anyway, yeah, this dungeon doesn't have any real enemies, just a few simple puzzles, and actually the next dungeon doesn't have any enemies in it either. So we've got a bit of a break while we develop the plot a bit more. We've got a bookshelf here, which is missing a book. That sounds like a pretty standard RPG fetch quest. Let's go find a book. But first, let's go say hi to Septimus. Basically, this entire dungeon consists of wandering around the sanctuary, finding something out of place or a puzzle that needs to be solved, and then going to look for Septimus. Yeah, check it out. There's a book on top of that column, and he doesn't say anything about it, even though we need a book. Instead, he points out that switch that he finds, which also apparently triggers a graphical glitch in the back. But it also makes a door open, somewhere. The West Room. Seems straightforward. Yeah, you can't get that book down. It's actually just the actual palette that's used in Chancellor Ronan's altar, the one that he keeps his supposed Bible on. So it has the same Bible on top of it, even though it's on top of a column. Anyway, moving over here, we can find the door that Septimus opened. Pretty simple. We had to open two switches in the last room, one switch in the last room, so we've got two switches in this room. I don't know why that little staircase on the right there is there. It doesn't serve any real purpose. That switch we'll actually have to access from another part of the sanctuary. Hooray, another switch! We can't actually trigger any of these switches ourselves, even if we happen to know where Septimus is going to find them. It's that sort of quest, so yeah. Trap inside the sanctuary. I mean, Ronan must have some kind of switch fetish or something, because this freaking switch is all over the place in here. I don't really know what the deal is. I mean, the fact that one of them happens to be a trap, I mean, maybe he's like Garterbelt from that anime. Anyway, that opens this other room here. Some beds we can use to drop down onto this switch, which opens yet another door. Lots of switches and doors, no combat, very little treasure, just lots and lots of switches. Alright, and some coffins for some reason. There's no, architectural reason behind anything in this place. I mean, why is there a mausoleum here? There's a cemetery outside, and another crypt behind that. This place is full of dead people. So, yeah, there's the book we need, but apparently it's not really cooperating. Don't they know how fetch quests work? We're supposed to pick the item up. So yeah, I can do this for a while, but it does get boring after a little bit. Yeah, eventually, the solution should be obvious. I mean, since everything else we have to do is revolved around checking with Septimus, it stands to follow the next thing we want to do is talk to him again, see what he has to say. So, I mean, yeah, we're desecrating the church all over the place. The mausoleum, the windows, might as well move the altar around, too. You can see a little staircase right underneath it, so I guess we're supposed to be eventually getting to that. I don't really know if this book is lost or rare, and that wasn't very funny, so if that's what scholar humor qualifies as, I don't know. Anyway, let's go back to that room. Septimus got a bit ahead of us. He has that warping power that we saw when he was chasing after Klein. You know, he's always exactly where he needs to be. I actually kind of like the dialogue here. You chase the book and he'll wait for it. Yes, you came with the plan, so we get to chase the blast thing around the room. Yeah. I mean, we already did it once, so we're old pros at chasing this book. There's no puzzle here, just keep chasing the book as it reappears until it shows up in front of Septimus. And then you can go pick it up. Eventually. Come on. Any minute now. Please? Please let me pick it up? Oh, you actually have to talk to Septimus. That's weird. So now we have the Book of Runes. So he'll go search for more switches, and we're going to have to go do the other half of this fetch quest, and return the Book of Runes to its proper place on the bookshelf in the East Wing. Let's go see what that does. Yeah, at some point I finally remember that you can dash. It makes this dungeon go a little bit faster just because there are only really so many rooms you actually have to explore. There's, you know, the room in the West Wing, the room in the East Wing, the one on the ground floor in either direction. So, all in all, a pretty speedy dungeon. Easier even than Tarn's Manor. Probably the easiest dungeon in the whole game, assuming you can wrap your brain around the puzzles. So yeah, another small gap between two of the volumes. Actually, it's pretty freaking huge, all things considered. Certainly a lot larger than most of the books themselves. Anyway, now that we've done that, yes, he's found another switch. Wonder what this unlocks. Probably the room to the right. I mean, it's the only room in this area we haven't been in right now. There's only about 7 or 8 puzzles to solve in the whole place, so we're pretty close. Yes, of course, we'll hit the switch. What else could possibly happen? Pushing the switch... Who cares if it kills? I've faced life or death so many times in this quest that pushing a switch, you know, the same type of switches that we've pushed the entire, you know, 21 other episodes of this, 20 other episodes of this LP. It's not really something that I'm concerned about. Anyway, first thing we want to do is push these stools onto the obvious indentations in the floor. Pretty simple. I told you this was a breather dungeon. Hit this switch. Nice. Unlocks the door below us. And we can open this treasure chest for the only treasure in the dungeon, the only one that isn't related to solving the puzzles, the 30th life vessel, or rather the 20th we actually picked up. So now I've got 20 life vessels and 20 Gilded Falcons. Of course, we're missing quite a few more Gilded Falcons, including the 3 from the casino I've yet to actually pick up at this particular point. This puzzle is incredibly aggravating. These 8 stools will move out of their indentations and you have to push them back in. It is actually possible to push them in the wrong direction, and they're extremely sensitive. After a certain point, the puzzle will also reset, and any stool that isn't on its indentation will move off of it again. This is actually the only way to resolve a stool pushed in the wrong direction, because that will move 1 space closer back to its indent. It's just obnoxious. Anyway, doing that gets us the second book, which, I mean, it should be pretty easy to figure out where we're supposed to put that. So let's go ahead and do that. Back up here to the right wing, where we saw the other indentation on the bookshelf. The switch is going to open up is actually right next to the bookshelf itself, as you'll see shortly, but when I originally played this game, I was sort of glancing at the guide I was using, and I didn't notice it at all, so I actually wandered all the way back to the West Wing looking for the switch, not realizing that it was right there, and just come all the way back and edit it back in, as if I had done it the whole time. So, now that we've talked a bit about my own stupidity, let's go check out that northern door. Now, I don't know if you ever played that game when you were a kid, you know, where you weren't allowed to touch the floor because it was lava or whatever, or because you were OCD like me. You know, one of those games. Or this puzzle is basically that. You'll notice there's a rug and a bunch of chairs and a table in the middle of the room. We're supposed to get to that switch, which we cannot reach with the mining bomb or the bow and arrow, without touching the rug. If you do, the switch disappears, and you have to return to the entrance of the room to get it to reappear. Kinda cute, I suppose, but again, extremely easy to solve. It shouldn't really take you more than 1 or 2 tries to realize what's going on. And of course, we follow the same path back up to pick up the chest, which contains a curious key. Really weird-looking key, all things considered. I mean, it could have been a regular key for all we know. It's not like it has any separate function, all things considered, other than the fact that it doesn't appear, I believe, on our key counter on the inventory screen. And I guess this doesn't count as a regular dungeon, so maybe it just doesn't have the key counter implemented. Alright, so, we found a curious keyhole. I guess we have to give him a curious key. I suppose he says that dialogue anytime you talk to him. We just hadn't noticed until right now, and we happen to already have the key. So yeah, let's go desecrate the altar and go check out what's below the sanctuary itself. By the gods, Alundra. Probably a bad thing to say, considering that we believe most of the village is apparently worshipping the equivalent of Satan. I don't know. Anyway, down we go. This is actually automatic, which explains why Septimus is following us as opposed to warping like he usually does. Guy's freaking fast as all get out. Check it out, there's a gate to this room. You think there's a boss fight here, right? It kind of looks like a boss arena. But no, it's just Ronan, and the game isn't even being subtle about it. He's just got an idol of Melzus right behind him. So I guess that answers the question as to whether or not he was doing this willingly, or sort of against his will, or accidentally. And yes, these are the same statues that the king ordered the people to destroy, so apparently they've been worshipping Melzus the whole time. Maybe that's why he's so pissed off all the time. So yep, Ronan is full-on, villain. Haha, Inception. And yes, apparently some of the villagers, including probably Giles, know this was the case the whole time, which sort of casts an interesting light onto the, people of this village in general. They were basically a backwoods village of Satan worshippers. Pretty freaking crazy, all things considered. I mean, when you take this into account, it casts a really bizarre, you know, in this particular light, things like Jess's ability to craft things out of the souls of the deceased, you kind of wonder if that was also demonic. Anyway, yeah, so Septimus is our buddy, and Jess is too, but otherwise, we basically at this point can't really trust anybody in the village because they're all devil worshippers. And yes, Ronan basically laughs in our face because God is on his side. Honestly, that's the truth. This particular God just happens not to be benevolent. We know benevolent gods exist in this universe because we've met some of their assistants, supposedly. Anyway, the narrative sort of explores exactly what I was talking about before. And now that we're back in Jess's house, let's go save. But actually, I didn't notice this too immediately. You can actually hear Jess smithing on the lower floors. Let's go check that out. I mean, nobody died last night. Nobody's died in a while. We've actually been doing pretty well. But no, Alundra's got the Power Glove. No point in hiding the name right now. It's named exactly what it is in all the Zelda games, and since I'm sure people have made the joke 1,000 times, there's no real point in making a now you're playing with power or the wizard reference. But anyway, yeah, Jess raises the relevant question. Is anybody dead? Certainly we didn't witness anything. What do you have to say? Yes. Sybil, the kid, the child is dead. That's actually an unusual subversion of how things usually work in these video games. I mean, usually kids are among the least likely to actually die, especially in a game that's not particularly targeted towards adults. This actually threw me a little bit. I actually got lost a little bit because even though I knew this happened, it is sort of a bizarrely affecting scene. Between this and the actual mention of alcohol in the previous episode, this game is not afraid to sort of break some basic conventions of sort of rated T for teen role-playing. Let's go talk to Ludus and Fane. Yeah, Sybil didn't die from a nightmare, she just was actually murdered. Considering we put Klein to death, and he was the only actual monster in the village, that means somebody's actually capable of killing people. I mean, we assume Giles is on our side, now that we've actually saved his life, but that's not really necessarily clear. It could be Ronan, now that we know he's an outright villain. We'll go check our bedroom, but there's no obvious clues. The only thing to do after this is actually to follow Rumi's clue, and go check out the cemetery and see what people have to say. So, let's go ahead and do that. We will actually eventually, after this, pick up our next objective in our next dungeon, which is another dream dungeon. So we'll cover that on the next episode of Let's Play Alundra. As soon as I navigate my way back to the northern exit, I'll see you then.